And I've also read about MDMA being a big, an effective treatment for PTSD.
It's funny you say that. They just now, there's actually 2 drugs that just came out. One, I think, have you ever heard it called on the streets? It was called Special K.
Special K, I've heard of it, yeah.
And they're actually allowing now people who are depressed through a nose spray to be able to use this stuff, which is kind of interesting. But on the other side of the coin with the MDMA, now MDMA is now being used by the VA for combat vets who are suffering big time with PTSD.
Legally, really?
Legally. Now, it's still probably in experimental stages right now. Obviously, MDMA has the ability to go up and squeeze all the endorphins out of your pituitary gland. Not pituitary gland, out of your, I forgot the gland now, but what it does is, it basically gives you all your happiness right now.
Right, yeah.
And
the happy gland.
Yeah. so they start to look at this bigger picture with these guys who are suffering from PTSD and kind of looked at that as an alternative to possibly, listen, if you're not going to commit suicide at the end of the day, that's all I care about.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about MDMA to say, hey, it's non-addictive or what the benefits are. Obviously, as a party drug, some of the ill effects, guys talk about, well, after I did it, and it'd take me 2 or 3 days to feel happy again. I guess till that happy gland gets filled back up again with all the right stuff.
Serotonin.
The serotonin. And if you look at that bigger picture, I haven't heard a whole lot more about that. I continue to push here at the VA with cannabis because, again, no one can commit suicide on that. You can't eat too much of it or drink too much of it and have those problems.
That's amazing, man.
Does it affect their benefits if they're using cannabis for the vets and stuff?
Actually, right now, yes. And the challenge is this, because federally it is illegal and the VA is run by the feds.
Right.
It makes it so that the individuals who need it most don't have access to it. Now, with that said, they've actually passed some laws in some of the other states that allow that for the VA to be more involved with it. And I think what they're doing is, as an example, I have a doctor over here at the VA now that I have spoken to. We talked about this. She agreed to work on, and they may be doing this with other vets, and I'm just not aware of it, but with this one individual, but he had to be willing to give up cigarettes and had to be willing to stop drinking completely. She wanted to monitor what happened if he just went to a cannabis-type regimen. And so he's been doing this now for about 120 days, and he's actually, of course, the positive side is he's actually given up cigarettes, which is interesting enough, through this whole process. But the doctor now, she's looking at this in a whole new way because she said what she sees happening, it's not like it's a typical pothead. And I'm like, well, so what do you mean? She goes, well, everybody thinks about smoking weed and laying on the couch all day long and being a lazy ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. But
playing video games.
And listen, does that exist? Sure, we all know that exists. I mean, I know guys who don't smoke weed and do that. So,
Exactly.
let alone if you smoke weed and do that.
Right.
So, but there's such a vast number of guys. I recently had I can say that, a former police officer come up to me, and he is now medicating with cannabis. Now he's retired.